everybody, welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. Today's video is Lesson 55 on page 62 in our book, covering the major scale, and more specifically, the C major scale. So our previous lesson, Lesson 54 on page 61, covered a couple of things that are leading us into this lesson. We talked about half steps. So a half step is one key on the piano to the very next key, either going to the right or going to the left. It doesn't matter if it's white or black, as I just showed you. So that is a half step. A whole step is basically two half steps. So if I start on C and go up a whole step, that's a half step, and the next key is another half step. So C to D is a whole step up, and there's a key in between. So always on whole steps, you'll have a key in between. Likewise, if I go down, C to B is a half step, and another half step takes me to B flat. So C to B flat is a whole step, and again, I've skipped a key in between. And then lastly, we talked about tetrachords. And a tetrachord is composed of 4 notes, and between each of those 4 notes is this specific pattern: whole step, half step. So if I start on C, that's my first note already of my 4-note tetrachord. So again, the pattern was whole, whole, half. So from C, a whole step is D. From D, a whole step is E. And then lastly, I need a half step. And a half step from E is right here on F. So building a tetrachord off of C would be C, D, E, F. Now look at the top of page 62. The major scale is made of 2 tetrachords joined by a whole step. We're going to talk about the C major scale on this page because we're starting on C. So you're saying, well, what's a C major scale? It starts on C, but then what? The tetrachords explain this. So 2 tetrachords. Our first tetrachord, if you look on the diagram there, we've already gone through it, but on the diagram there, or specifically not diagram, but the staff, the treble staff, it says the key note is C. The key note is the first note of your scale, and it tells us what scale it is, C major in this case. So again, that first tetrachord is C, and then your next note there is D. Remember, that's a whole step, and then E, that's a whole step, and then F, that's a half step. That is our first tetrachord, C, D, E, and F. Now the second tetrachord, remember it said it's joined by a whole step. So after the first tetrachord, we need to go a whole step up, and you see it's written in red there. So a whole step up from F, not a half step, is G. Okay? And G begins our second tetrachord. So I'm going to switch my fingering here for a bit, and I'm just going to put my thumb on that G. So this is the beginning of the second tetrachord. So from G, we go up a whole step, which is A, another whole step, which is B, and a half step, which is C. We're back to our key note. We're back to C. So essentially, you could keep going up the piano, because from C, it's like starting over, all over again. C, D, E, F, joined by a whole step, so that takes you to G. And then from G, go A, B, C. So it just keeps on going, really infinitely, but realistically when you reach the end of the piano. So that's actually the C major scale. We just played it. So the C major scale starts on C, and it goes up to C. And the notes that are in between just so happen to be, in this case, all white keys. So if someone says, okay, C major scale, I'm going to start on C, but then what do I play? If you don't, now you can memorize that it's all the white keys from C to C, or you can be really specific and say, well, it's 2 tetrachords joined by a whole step. Most people actually don't need to know that to get by. What a lot of people do is they just end up memorizing their scales. You're going to end up playing them and practicing them so much that you'll just commit the notes to memory. But if you ever truly get stuck and you say, I don't have my music, I don't know anything, but I remember my tetrachords, you can actually figure out every single scale every single major scale. This is for major scales. Every single major scale there is. You can start on any key, black or white, and this system will always work. Okay, so it's not on this page, but I'll demonstrate. Let's go to a D. Okay, so first tetrachord, whole step, half. So from D, a whole step is E. A whole step from E is going to be F sharp, and then the half step is G. There's our first tetrachord, D, E, F sharp, G. Joined by a whole step. So I got to go up a whole step from G, which is A. Okay, I'm going to switch my fingering here. So beginning of the second tetrachord, A, whole step is B. Another whole step is going to be C sharp, and then the half step is D. We just figured out our D major scale. It's D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So we had no idea what those notes were, but we were able to figure them out because tetrachord, whole step, second tetrachord, that system worked. And it'll work for any key. You can try it. And if you say, well, does that sound right? Because it sounds kind of weird. Major scales have like a happy sound. That's kind of happy. Right. But if you end up playing something like this, actually that was kind of cool. That was kind of bluesy. But anyways, it had a different sound, didn't it? So, you know, always use your ear too. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Really, we just want to dig into the C major scale. All right, so now that we know how to construct the scale, let's figure out how to play it. You notice what I just did there. I was able to play it quite smooth, quite fast, quite even. I'll show you how to do that. So in the middle, it says preparation for scale playing. Since there are 8 notes in the C major scale and we only have 5 fingers, an important trick must be mastered, passing the thumb under the 3rd finger. This exercise will make this trick easy. Now, when I pointed to the notes earlier, keep in mind that was pointing. Don't ever play like this. You might say, that's easy. It is, up to a point. You try to go fast, it's gonna sound really choppy, but this, I can make it musical and smooth and fast and quick and all that stuff. So let's talk about this. Play hands separately, begin very slowly, keep the wrist loose and quiet. I'm not sure how to make a loud wrist, to be honest. So I don't know what that quiet is about. But anyways, so we're gonna start with the treble clef, which is what I've been doing all along with my right hand. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put your hand in the middle C position. Okay, makes sense. C scale, C position. So the first 3 notes they give us there are middle C with 1, D with 2, E with 3. Now pause. Do not play F with 4. For the scale, you need to take your thumb and cross under. Now that may be hard for you to see on the video. I'll try to angle my hand here. But what I'm doing is I'm using my 3rd finger, and I've got very curved, this is where curved hands are really gonna come into play. I've got my wrist up, curved fingers, so my 3rd finger can twist and my thumb comes under and lands on F. Now when you do that, bring your hand back around. Okay, and when you do that and you bring your hand back around, you can kind of put it in this position, F, G, A, B, C, because you're actually going to finish out the scale with those notes. Now, in this exercise, we're not going that high yet. This exercise is just getting you used to crossing that thumb under. But when you're coming down the scale, so you look in the 3rd measure there, you've got your thumb on F, and it says cross 3 over. Now this is really important. Why is it 3? Why can't it be 2 or 4? Because when I cross my 3rd finger over the thumb to E, I want to make sure I land or end with my thumb on C. Now I can do that because 2's on D, thumb's on C. But if I'm here on F and I cross to 4 on E, you might say, well, that's fine, I can end it. But in the future, you're going to learn to play to keep going with this scale and eventually learn how to play that scale all the way up and back down the piano. It's an excellent exercise in so many ways. So if I want to keep going and my finger, let's see, if I land with a 2 here, what's going to happen is then I'm with my thumb here, and then I'm like, well, where do I cross here? And things start really getting messed up. So you might feel like there should be other fingering. You might think, the fingering doesn't matter. I can still play it. Trust me, this is the only way. Okay, this is like universal scale fingering right here. So you got to stick with this. It is the best. So once again, at the beginning of that line, middle C with the 1, D with 2, E with 3. Practice crossing that thumb under to F. And then you're going to hit that F again in third measure. Practice crossing 3 back over that thumb to the E. 2 on D and then thumb on C. I'm not even concerned about rhythm. Go very slow. Don't even have to follow this rhythm. But just practice crossing under. And then practice crossing over. That's what you want to focus on. Now on the left hand, they're actually starting on middle C as well. They're not starting down here with C on 5, but middle C with your thumb. And we're going backwards, but it's really very, very similar. So C is 1, B is 2, A is 3. When you get to G, don't play it with 4, but pass the thumb under, just like you did in the right hand. So in the left hand, your thumb is on G. And the next measure, hit that G again and cross the 3 over on A. It has to be 3 because that's the only way you're going to end with your thumb back on C. So once again, it's C, B, A with your third finger, cross your thumb under to G. Okay? Hit the G again, cross your third finger over to A, and then back up to B, and finally C. Now you're going to do these one hand at a time. Don't feel like you need to do these together. At the very bottom, the C major scale. Begin slowly. I can't emphasize that enough. Slowly. Again, don't worry about consistent rhythm yet. Focus on the fingering. Take as much time as you need for that fingering to work. The rhythm will come later, and the rhythm is just steady quarter notes. Yes, we want it to be very even and very steady, but again, you've got to get this fingering first. So, the right hand, we start on C with our thumb. 2 on D, 3 on E, and the key to making this work is that thumb under on F, because once you get the thumb under on F, bring the rest of the hand over, you're in position for the rest of the scale. 2 on G, 3 on A, 4 on B, and 5 on C. The third measure, hit that C again and come back down. 4 on B, 3 on A, 2 on G, the thumb on F, and this is the other cross. You cross over, remember, like we did earlier, 3 on E, 2 on D, and thumb on C. So you practice it enough times and eventually you'll have this nice smooth motion. So I'm playing it with even quarter notes now. But it's all about these cross-unders and crossovers that are so important. In the left hand, we're going down from middle C. So 1 on C, 2 on B, 3 on A, cross that thumb under the G, and move the rest of your hand over, and you're in place for the remaining notes. 2 on F, 3 on E, 4 on D, 5 on C. Next measure, hit the C again, come back up. All the way up to the G, so when you get to your thumb, cross over, make sure it's 3, 2, and 1. So wherever they mark the red, the pass-unders, the crossovers, that is your focus. So like I said, you don't have to do hands together. Do them separately, and that'll be plenty. But if you want to take it to the next level, really want to push yourself, this is not that hard what I'm about to do. I'm going to play hands together. So You can choose which hand does middle C. So even though they're different notes, both hands, B in the left hand, D in the right hand, are playing with the same finger, 2s, and then 3s. And you're actually going to cross under with thumbs at the same time. It's just a G in the left hand and F in the right hand. And if you assign your fingers, just think about your fingering now. 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5. So this is called contrary motion, both hands at the same time. And then you can come back. So again, focus on the fingers, not so much the notes. Just next finger, just keep your fingers close to the keys and you won't miss the notes. So 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s, and then 3s in both hands will cross. And again, take as much time as you need. And then 2s, and then you'll end up with middle C. Either hand's fine. So you can really push it, and that's actually a great exercise, and eventually, if you can get to that point, you're doing awesome. So this is a very important lesson today. You're learning your first scale, and I'll probably do another video outside of this book about the importance of scales. Because they really are the foundation of music, in my opinion. They're everything. Not to mention great exercises, great technique build up for your fingers. So there's so much involved with doing scales. So, but since it's the beginning, take your time with it. Go very, very slow. Focus on the pass unders and the crossovers. And throughout this book and other books to come, you'll learn about all the scales, specifically major scales first, across the piano. And of course, you can already figure out the notes, maybe not the fingering, but the notes to any major scale based on the tetrachord system. So there is that too. But if you don't memorize the tetrachords, you can memorize the scales and you'll get by just fine. So as always, wish you luck on this one. Like I said, do spend some time with it, and look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.